In this lesson, we'll cover selection statements. Selection statements allow a user to compare two variables based on their values, and if that criterion is met, then it performs a list of actions or instructions and then stops. So to begin, MATLAB uses a comparison in a lot of ways like we do in math or algebra. So we use these 6 symbols: the less than symbol, the less than or equal to symbol, greater than equal to, or the not equal to symbol. And so the way this differs from things that we've done previously in MATLAB is before in MATLAB we would input a variable using the equal sign, and let's say A assign 1. I happen to use the word assign when talking about a single use of the equal sign. And what this will do is, if we were to run this with inside the command window here, we will see that A is assigned the value of 1. Okay, but if we're testing the logic and we want to compare two different things, we use a double equal sign. So this is going to tell MATLAB to clear the command window and then clear the stored variables and then ask MATLAB, hey, is 1 equal to 1? So we will run this, and what will appear in the command window is the word logical, letting the user know that it is telling it whether this condition happens to be true or false. So we know that 1 does equal 1, so we will expect that we will get the logical 1 back. And indeed we do. So to go back and test the opposite argument, let's say 2, because 2 is not equal to 1. So we would expect that MATLAB would print out, again, logical, letting us know that it is either going to be giving us an answer of true or false, 1 being true and 0 being false. And in this case, we expect 0 because 2 is not equal to 1. And that is exactly what happens. So this is a brief overview of comparison statements, or symbols, I should say. And you can do this exact same thing with these other symbols, but we'll dive right into selection statements and show you how to use these comparisons. So all selection statements use the word if, or begin with the word if, and then end with the word end. And basically what that does is it tells MATLAB to stop here, and it's very common in selection statements and in functions and in loops. And so it's pretty important, I think, to begin, if you start a selection statement, loop, or a function, to, as soon as you do that, write end so that you can keep track of everything. And then we need to give this if statement a criterion to compare. So we'll say that A assign or is equal to 1, and we need to define the variable A, and we'll assign it the value 1 because we want this to be true for this case, and we'll assign the variable B, and we'll set that equal to 6. These numbers are really don't have any reason to consider anything, but in this case, just using it for a simple example. So what this is going to ask is if or does A equal 1, and if so, provide this action, and the action will be, we'll say B is 20. So if A happens to be 1, which it is, we'll reassign the value of 20 to B, and then it stops. So we'll run that, and we'll need to display B first here. So there we go. And yep, since that A is equal to 1, it meets the criterion, and B then is reassigned. So that's only one condition. What if A were, let's say, 3? Then, as you see, B remains 6. But what if we want to change the value of B even though it's not 1? So in that case, we'll use the word else. And else is kind of a all encapsulating, if it doesn't do this or it doesn't meet this criterion, then do this other action. And so we'll say B assign 64. And so we will run this again, and as you can see, B is reassigned the value to 64 because it did not meet the first criterion, which we said that A was equal to 1, or asked if A was equal to 1, and it's false. So then it moves on and determines that it is not equal to 1, so B must be reassigned to a value of 64. And we have a third option here, and that is our else if. So we'll put that there, and then we'll say else if. And else if is useful if you were to want to choose another criterion. Let's say A is less than 24 or 34 in this case. Do this action, and the action would be assign B the value of 100. And we'll suppress that. So we will change A to be the value of, it doesn't matter, it just has to be less than 34 for this example. So we'll say 22. And we'll expect then B is assigned the value of 100. So there we go. And the way else if and selection statements work in general is they will continue to move down the different branches until one of the criterion is met, and then once that is met, it does those performed actions and then goes to end. It will not go to else, and it will not go to any others that would also satisfy, but it's this is the criterion it meets, and the reason for that is, like, if I were to assign A the value of 55, which is greater than 34 and is not 1, then else is the selection statement that is responsible for that scenario. So in this case, we expect B to be reassigned the value of 64, and there we go. So this is a very, very simple way to use a selection statement. It in no way has, in this regard, has much use. So for our next example, we will move on to actually putting this into something usable, and we will allow a user to choose whether they want to determine the area of a rectangle, circle, or triangle. So to begin, we'll need to give the user this option, and by doing this, we'll use a more, I would say, it's not a complex function, but it's more down the road for users you probably haven't seen yet, but it's very, very useful. And it's called the choice function. And again, we'll want to assign this to our variable shape, and then it's actually, sorry, it's called our menu function, and we will give it 3 different choices. And the first set of commas are, or quotation marks, are just a string, and a string that will ask the user to please select a shape. And we'll say rectangle, circle, or a triangle. And the reason that I'm using the menu function here versus another way of manual input or user-defined input is that I want the user to be able to choose or have the ability to change what they want, but I don't want them to put in something that's not defined in this area. So I don't want them to be able to put in something like the area of a parallelogram. This just won't do that. It's only able to do a rectangle, circle, or triangle. So we will then begin our selection statement. So if shape is equal to, and then we have to figure out what it's equal to. So the way that the menu works is that depending on which choice you choose, and this will pop up in a small pop-up box up here with 3 different buttons, and depending on which button or choice that you choose, it will assign the variable shape a according number or value. So if we chose the first choice, then it's going to assign shape the value of 1. And same thing for circle, so that would assign shape the value of 2, and as well triangle, which would assign shape the value of 3. So the first condition that we want to check here is if shape is equal to 1, and this is for rectangle. So and if it is, then we want it to do these list of action. So we will tell MATLAB to ask the user what the dimensions of the rectangle are using. We'll assign length, and is then we'll use the user-defined or the function input, and the string, please type the length of the rectangle. And then we will do the exact same thing for our width. Now notice that I am making everything nice and tidy by allowing if to be in this indent and length to be over here. This allows us to, once we have a full script, to go back through it and easily find our organization of our selection statements or loops or functions. So then we need to change this to width. And there we go. And now area. So area is equal to length times width. And then suppress. And then, oh, don't forget our end statement. And I'm just going to move that down a couple spaces. We'll include an else if statement here because we want to check the condition if it is a circle. So we'll continue, and if shape is equal to, again, circle would assign shape the value of 2. So then for this condition, it's going to have to equal 2. And in this scenario, we would want the radius. So we're going to have MATLAB ask for the radius. And this will be a circle. And we will calculate the area. And the area is equal to the MATLAB already has pi used, so you can use just the abbreviation pi times radius and then squared. And we have to suppress that. And there we go. That's area of a circle. Now to encapsulate our last choice here, we'll just use the else statement, and this does not require an actual condition. This is just in case that if it was not equal to 1 and it's not equal to 2, then do these set of actions, which would ask the user for the dimensions of the triangle and then calculate the area of that triangle. So we'll go ahead and do that. And we'll do it height. And we will do our base. Okay, so now we're about done. We'll need a way to print out our end answer. I will use the built-in function fprintf. It's a great function. It may be around the same time that you were learning this, but if you haven't learned it yet, it's a great time to learn it because you will use this function a lot. And basically this function allows you to print out a string and then go back up into your script and grab a variable and input that value into your string. The reason I want to do this is I want to say the area of the shape is, and then we'll use our percent sign here as like a placeholder, and that tells MATLAB to put the stored variable here, and we'll have to tell it how many, if we want decimals and how many of them, or if I want whole numbers. In this case, I just want whole numbers, so I'll do use the number 2.0 f, which is for a floating number, \n, and that'll make it come down on the next line. And then outside our string, we can just type in the word area, or the variable area, and we're good to go. So the way that this selection statement in script runs is it first clears out the command window. It then clears out the stored variables, and then it asks the user to please choose a shape that you would like to find the area for. So to begin, then it goes, once you've done that, it'll assign a value to shape, a value from 1 to 3 depending on the choices, and then MATLAB asks itself, okay, shape, and is shape equal to this value? This first value would be 1. Is it equal to 1? It is, so then we would go and dimension the rectangle, and then MATLAB would calculate the area and then print out the area. It would skip these two because it's already been satisfied. If we were to choose our circle instead, it would skip over this step because it would say, okay, shape is equal to 1. No, it's not. Okay, next step. Is shape equal to 2? Yes, it is. Okay. The MATLAB would then prompt the user to input the radius, and you would input the radius, and it would calculate the area. And if you would originally use the triangle choice, then it would assign shape the value of 3, resulting in neither condition of 1 or 2 being met. And so then this last condition, this catch-all, applies, and it has to be the area of the triangle because there's only 3 conditions or choices or values that it can be, and it does a similar thing and prints out an area, and we will give that a go now. So we'll say rectangle, I'll say 2, press enter, I'll say 4, press enter. Oh, what have I done here? I need an F, that's all. Okay, so we'll redo this again. Rectangle, 1, 5, area, the shape is 5. Try circle here, radius is 6, the area of the shape is 113. Again, it's probably a also very common to use units. We're going to pretend these are dimensionless areas and shapes. And then our last case, if I were to choose a triangle, and I would need a height, I need 5 and 7, and the area of the shape is 18. So this is a very, very basic selection statement. There are other ways of doing this, and you can also include several different criterion. So I can do and shape is equal to 2. This obviously won't work because the way that my menu is set up, but basically what this selection statement would be saying is that both of these conditions need to be met for this action to occur. I can also use the symbol for or, which is this, or one of these, or MATLAB likes to use 2 in these selection statements, and that says if either of these conditions are met, this condition is true. And then if it's true, do these steps. So that is the basics of selection statements. You will use these all throughout the rest of this course. They're very, very handy. Again, this is a very basic example, and you can do really cool things with them, especially when you learn loops and you learn how to use functions, or even they'll be very handy when you get to one of your projects. It might be a good idea to even use if statements within inside if statements, sort of like they're called nested if statements. And so it's a very, very handy tool to have in your tool belt, and it's very common in many other languages as well. So that is the lesson on selection statements, and good luck.